What's up guys, welcome back to another video, and it's 2022 baby! You know what that means, time for a new part of What If Ash Woke Up on Time. This video was supposed to come out last month, but I got sidetracked with a bunch of life stuff and you don't want to hear about it, but it's out now, so I hope you guys enjoy this video. But before we can actually begin the what if, I want to thank our sponsor of the video, Surfshark VPN. Many of you guys already know what Surfshark VPN is. It's an app and browser extension that allows you to place your phone or computer anywhere in the world. So you can access the internet as if you were actually in that country. And of course, this allows you to access content that you may not normally be able to see, which I think is pretty cool. For example, let's say you want to watch one of the best series in all of Pokemon, the X and Y series on Netflix. However, for whatever reason, it's not on the US Netflix, but you can watch it in Malaysia. So all you gotta do is switch over to a Malaysian server, and like magic, now you can watch that amazing final battle between Ash and Alon. Surfshark also encrypts your online data to add an extra protection of layer to keep all your personal information safe. So no one will be able to see what you're doing while you're surfing the World Wide Web with your Porygon. With all that said, if you click the link in the top of the description and use code DEXCOMICS, as a thank you for using my code, Surfshark is going to give you 83% off and 3 months free. Surfshark VPN also offers a 30-day money-back guarantee, so there's pretty much no risk in trying it out for yourself. So what are you waiting for? Click that link at the top of my description and use code DEXCOMICS. And one final thank you to Surfshark VPN for sponsoring this video. Now we can begin the what if. Following Ash's win at the 8th and final gym, the gang head to Pacific Log Town, where May enters and wins the contest there. She then catches herself a Munchlax and Ash has his first battle with Morrison, which plays out like normal. The entirety of the Grand Festival can be left to play out like normal. However, when Ash watched Drew use his Flygon in a fight, it makes Ash want to train up his own Vibrava. We then can go straight into when they arrive at Evergrande City and they meet Tyson just like in canon. With that, we can go straight into the league itself, and during the preliminary round, Ash and Spoink face off against a Hitmonlee. It's during this match that Spoink evolves into a Grumpig and learns the move Teeter Dance. With that new power, Grumpig takes out Hitmonlee, allowing Ash to move on. His next fight is a double battle where he uses Charizard and Vibrava. Ash takes this fight quite easily. Ash's next fight is a bit more difficult as he uses Mightyena and Grovyle against a Quilava and Charizard. Grovyle and Mightyena are able to take out the Quilava, but shortly after, Charizard takes out Mightyena. And despite being at a type disadvantage, Grovyle does manage to barely beat Charizard. After a day of rest, we move on to Ash's battle with Katie. Their first Pokemon are Golduck and Skarmory, and this fight ends with Skarmory taking out Golduck. Katie then sends out Misdreavus, and Ash decides to swap out to Mightyena. It doesn't take too long for Mightyena to take out the Ghost Pokemon, but because of Destiny Bond, Mightyena faints as well. Katie then sends out her Venomoth while Ash sends back in his Skarmory. Thanks to the type advantage, Skarmory takes out Venomoth, forcing Katie to send out Scizor. While Skarmory tries its best to fight Scizor, it's already tired from its previous fights, and that causes it to be KO'd. Ash sends out his Charizard, who quickly deals with the Scizor, and Katie's second to last Pokemon is the Trio. Ash decides to swap out Charizard for his Vibrava, who takes out the Trio. Unfortunately for Ash, Katie's last Pokemon is Walrein, who defeats his Vibrava and Grumpig. Ash's second to last Pokemon is Grovyle, who he decides to send in to defeat Walrein like it did in canon. For his next battle, he finds out that he's up against his new friend, Morrison. And like in the original, Morrison is unable to bring himself to attack Ash. Because of that, Vibrava takes out Girafarig and Growlithe. Morrison is hesitant to send out his third Pokemon and would have been eliminated had it not been for Ash snapping him out of his funk. For Morrison's third Pokemon, he sends out Gligar, and this ends in a double KO and they move into an intermission. Following the intermission, we get Charizard versus Steelix, and thanks to the type advantage, Charizard wins this fight. However, for the next Pokemon, Morrison sends out Swampert, who defeats Charizard because of the type advantage. Grumpig is then sent in to finish off Swampert, only to be defeated by Metang. Ash's next Pokemon is Mightyena, who puts down Metang with a couple of Snarls and Dark Pulses. Ash and Morrison promise to fight again at some point, and after the battle ends, Ash finds out he will be fighting Tyson next. And because of that, we can go straight into their battle as Tyson begins with Shiftry and Ash sends out his Mightyena. Both Pokemon prove to be very fast, however, Mightyena can't really land much of anything. So Ash decides to do a swap out for Skarmory, and Tyson decides to do the same thing, only he sends out Hariyama. This proves to be a mistake as Hariyama can't really hit Skarmory. After Skarmory sets up spikes, it doesn't take long for Hariyama to fall to a few air cutters. Tyson's third Pokemon is Sceptile, who surprisingly takes out Skarmory with a few Bullet Seeds and a Solar Beam. Vibrava is then sent out to battle Sceptile, however it's not strong enough and gets defeated. Ash then sends in his Grumpig to finish the job with a Confusion and Psybeam. Ash then recalls Grumpig, and the next two Pokemon are Grovyle and Donphan, which would seem like an easy win for Grovyle, but Donphan's rollout does deal immense amount of damage to Grovyle. It does look like Grovyle is close to defeating it until it's hit by another rollout, causing it to faint. Ash then sends back in Grumpig, who defeats Donphan when it uses Psychic to stop its rollout. It then just consistently smashes Donphan into the floor until it's knocked out. Tyson's fourth Pokemon is this Shiftry. And because Ash quickly figures out that Psychic attacks have no effect on Dark types, he swaps out Grumpig for his Charizard. Despite having the type advantage here, Charizard struggles to land any real attacks on Shiftry, as Shiftry is just too fast, and Charizard, she's just getting hit by Shadow Balls and Mega Kicks. But ultimately, Charizard is able to take the win. Tyson's second to last is Metagross, and Ash decides to keep Charizard in. Charizard ultimately still has the same problem of trying to hit the opponent, as during the battle, Metagross lands a Confusion on Charizard. So while still able to deal damage to Metagross, Charizard is also hurting herself. It does manage to take the win over Metagross, but by the time Tyson's Meowth comes out, it only takes one Thunderbolt to put down Charizard. Ash's second to last Pokemon is his Mightyena, and this turns into a very cat versus dog kind of fight. Thanks to Snarl, Meowth's Thunderbolt quickly becomes kinda pointless, as it feels like a small little jolt on whoever it hits. Regardless of that, Meowth still has a bunch of more just physical attacks, like Iron Tail, which he uses to hit Mightyena's leg, causing it to fall over. Meowth then unleashes a bunch of Fury Swipes on Mightyena, which cause it to faint. This forces Ash to send in his Grumpig, who is asleep, and almost costs Ash the battle, but it manages to wake up at the last minute. Ash goes for the usual strategy of trying to confuse an opponent so it can take itself out. However, Meowth uses Fury Swipes on itself to snap out of the confusion. Once Ash realizes that this strategy will take forever to work, he goes on the offensive. And they use the same strategy they used against Donphan, which is to use Psychic to pick Meowth up. Thanks to Snarl, Meowth's Thunderbolt deals very little damage, meaning Meowth has no way of defending itself. After being slammed against the floor a couple of times, Grumpig finishes off Meowth with a close-range Psybeam. With no more Pokemon to battle with, Ash is declared the winner, and Tyson congratulates him on getting this far. After Ash thanks him, he rushes over to the Pokemon Center. Now this is where Ash's journey came to an end in the show, and Tyson went on to win the conference. However, in this timeline, Ash has defeated Tyson, and because this is my video, I'm gonna say that Ash wins the Evergrande Conference. Having become the winner of the conference, Mr. Goodshow tells Ash that he has the opportunity to challenge the Elite Four and the champion. While initially Ash is excited to take on the challenge, he quickly remembers his battle with Drake he had. That battle taught him that even though his current team is strong, they're still no match for the Elite Four. Mr. Goodshow tells him that he doesn't need to challenge them right away. He could just wait and challenge them later on. Ash says that he will challenge them later on, as it will give him a lot more time to prep his team for the Elite Four. Following the conclusion of the Pokemon League, May and Max leave the group as they have to head back to Petalburg City, meaning that Ash and Brock have to head back to Kanto. Eventually, Ash and Brock have to split ways, but not after saying that they'll travel together again. When arriving at Viridian City, Ash finds himself in front of Giovanni's old gym, where he meets Scott and Agatha. Much like in the original, Ash has a battle with Agatha, in which Ash gets defeated and shortly after finds out about the Battle Forntier. After hearing about it, Ash decides that he'd like to challenge the Battle Forntier. As he leaves Viridian City, Ash is greeted by two old friends, Richie and AJ. They both congratulate him on making it all the way through the Hoenn League. Although Ash is happy to see them, he's a little confused on how they knew where he was gonna be, and AJ just tells him that his mom told him that he would most likely take this route. He goes on to tell them that they've got a party waiting for him back at Pallet Town, and because of this, they head straight towards Pallet Town. When the three of them arrive at Pallet Town and later Ash's home, he is greeted by his mom, Oak, Tracy, Casey, Misty, and later Max and Professor Birch. They all then have a big party for Ash as he won the Hoenn League, and the following day Ash reunites with some of his old Pokemon. Ash then informs everybody about wanting to challenge the Battle Forntier, so he invites May and Max to come along. Since May wants to do some contest in Kanto, she agrees to go, but Max declines as he needs to go home and help Norman in the gym. Ash is disappointed to hear that Max needs to go, however he turns to Richie, AJ, and Casey, asking if they want to come along as well. Richie is the only one who agrees to go with him as he'd like to challenge it as well. As for AJ, he says that he can only go so far with them as he has to get back to his unofficial gym. Casey declines to go because Team Electabuzz will be traveling to the Orange Archipelago soon and she has to be there to cheer them on. Ash then finally asks Misty if she'd like to come along, and since Misty isn't a gym leader in this timeline, she agrees to come along. For this journey, Ash decides to leave Grumpig and Skarmory behind at Oak's lab. However, he does decide to bring along Totodile as it seems to be itching to travel with Ash again. The following day, when the team's about to leave Pallet Town, Brock rejoins the group. After setting off on their journey to compete in the Battle Forntier, Brock reveals that he left Lumbre back at Pewter City. After an encounter with the Clefla line at Mount Moon, they split ways with AJ as he has to leave. Unfortunately for AJ, he just barely misses out on the events of the 8th movie. Not too much is different, but during the battle inside the palace, Totodile learns Hydro Pump. Also, Totodile and that Ambipom become really good friends. There'd also be a scene of Misty asking Ash to dance, but because he's the Guardian, he can't. Other than that, most of the movie can play out like normal, with Totodile and Sparky taking the roles of Pikachu and Meowth. After this, they arrive at the Battle Factory and meet Noland. Much like in the original, Ash uses Charizard to defeat Noland's Articuno. After Ash gets his knowledge symbol, Richie has his battle with Norman and his Venusaur. It's during this battle that Zippo evolves into a Charizard to give Richie the win. While stopping at a nearby Pokemon Center, Nurse Joy informs them about the contest at Saffron City. Not long after, the group arrive at Saffron City where May has her first Kanto contest. For the most part, everything remains the same. The only thing that really changes is that Misty and Brock are a little bit more picky at May about registering a lot sooner rather than later. After May wins the contest, Ash decides to pay Haunter and Sabrina a little visit. Nothing really changes, he's just there to see how they're doing. After that, we move on to the second Frontier Brain, and Scott informs Ash and Richie about the Pokemon Geerta usually uses in her fights. Ash decides to make a quick call to Professor Oak before going to the battle arena. This fight plays out like it did in canon, with Ash just sweeping her entire team with just Snorlax. So Ash gets the gut symbol, and as for Richie, he has to use Rose and Sparky to defeat her Pokemon. Richie's battle is a lot closer compared to Ash's battle, but regardless he gets his symbol and they head off to the Battle Dome. After traveling for a bit, they come across an egg farm where they decide to stay the night. Later that night, the farm is being robbed by Team Rocket, and not the Team Rocket we all know and love. It's Bill and Cassidy.
My name's not Biff, it's Butch, and you know it!
However, Ash, May, and Misty are able to stop them from getting away with any eggs. Richie, Brock, and Misty are busy catching the eggs as they fall. It's during this whole scandal that Togepi finally evolves into a Togetic, just to save the eggs that are falling. This time around, both Ash and May are given eggs, and they head off to Silvertown right after this. May just barely wins the Silvertown contest, earning herself a second ribbon. From here we go to Ash's battle with the third Frontier brain, Tucker, who likes to do double battles using his Swampert and Arcanine. Since he is given the opportunity to bring back any of his Pokemon, he chooses to bring back Kabutox. So Ash chooses to send in Kabutox and Grovyle, who have a hard time dealing with Tucker's Pokemon. However, it's during this fight that Grovyle finally evolves into a Sceptile. And with a combination of Solar Beam and Kabutox's Absorb, they decimate Swampert. Arcanine is later done in when hit with an Aqua Jet and Quick Attack. This earns Ash the Tactics symbol, and Ash decides to send Kabuto back to Professor Oak's. Richie then goes after him and he sends in Cruz and Happy. However, Richie loses this fight and is told to come back when he is stronger. Although Richie is bummed out that he lost, he says he'll definitely come back and battle again. After this, Ash and the gang meet Solana and a new Celebi. For the most part, this episode can play out the same, just without Team Rocket, and shortly after this, Brock catches himself a baby Bonsly. After May, Misty, and Squirtle go back in time, May's egg finally hatches into an Aron. It's not long after that they get to the Battle Pike where Richie battles Lucy first. Richie's Cruz takes out her Survivor while Sparky takes out Milotic. For Ash's battle, he uses Mightyena against Survivor, and both Pokemon are evenly matched in terms of strength. However, when it came to speed, Survivor is just a tad bit faster. However, thanks to one of the many poison tails that hit Mightyena, it gets poisoned, and this activates his ability, Quick Feet. This makes Mightyena faster than Survivor, and eventually it helps him get the win. However, against Milotic, Mightyena doesn't really last that long, as not only is Milotic really strong, but the poison finally gets to it. Ash then sends in Sceptile, who takes down the Milotic with a few Bullet Seeds and Solar Beams. After gaining the luck symbol, our team enter the Pokemon Orienteering contest, where Misty and her Quagsire win the whole thing. After this, they head out to Astoria Town, where instead of using her Munchlax, May uses Bulbasaur in her second round to beat Harley. They then find out that the next contest is in Cherusum Island?
Chrysanthemum Island?
Who the fuck named these islands? Goddamn. After Sceptile gets its heart broken by Meganium, they arrive at Cherusum Island.
Chrysanthemum Island?
So I just found out it's pronounced Chrysanthemum Island, and I'm not gonna try to re-record this because fuck trying to say that name. Anyways, May enters the contest and wins her 4th Kanto badge. This island's also where they end up coming across a wild Chinchou that Misty ends up catching. Much like last time, Richie gets to battle Spencer first, and his Claydol defeats Happy, and then Cruz comes in to defeat the Claydol. Shiftry then comes in to defeat Cruz, just for Richie to send in Zippo to finish off Shiftry and Venusaur. After Richie, Ash gets his turn, and they begin with Sceptile and Shiftry. This fight's pretty much the same. Sceptile beats Shiftry, nothing much to it. When Spencer sends out Venusaur, Ash decides to recall Sceptile and send out his Kanto starter. And of course, it doesn't take long for Charizard to defeat Venusaur. Spencer's final Pokemon is Claydol, who manages to take out Charizard after quite the battle. Ash then sends in his Totodile, who takes out the Claydol after a Hydro Pump and Bite, earning Ash the Spirit Symbol. After this, May finds out that the next contest is in Gardenia Town, which we can skip straight to because this plays out a little different. As the battling round for the contest, May uses her Aron while Brock uses Cacnea. While the battle is a little different, the outcome still ends up being the same, with May being declared the winner and making it her 5th ribbon. This means she's eligible for the Grand Festival. Anyways, let's move on to the battle against Annabelle, in which Richie also goes first. Okay, so I had a whole paragraph written out on how he wins, but I'm just gonna go over the most notable parts because I don't want to waste more time. The only thing really notable here is that Richie's Pupitar evolves into a Tyranitar to defeat Alakazam and Espeon. Anyways, after Richie earns the ability symbol, Ash goes next. However, while they're waiting for Annabelle to heal her Pokemon, Ash requests from Professor Oak to send him one of his Pokemon. When they actually get into the battle, Annabelle sends out her Alakazam, and Ash sends out his Scyther, who still doesn't really like to listen to Ash, but after getting tossed around by Alakazam, Scyther eventually decides to reluctantly listen to Ash. When Metagross comes out, Ash decides to swap out to Charizard, who defeats it quite effortlessly. Annabelle's final Pokemon is Espeon, and Ash decides to swap out to his Mightyena, who actually does struggle against the Espeon. But eventually, Mightyena takes the win. With Ash earning the ability symbol, they find out that the final place is the Battle Pyramid. But before we can get to that, we have the Deoxys two-parter, where Ash pretty much just takes up the role of Max. For the most part, nothing really changes. Ash and Deoxys just promise to each other that they'll travel the world together. On their way to Pewter City, they travel down Route 25 where they arrive in a small town. The locals of the town ask them if they're Pokemon trainers, as they've got a problem with a few Pokemon that have been wrecking their town. They're willing to pay anything to get rid of those Squirtles, as they've already hired 2 people to go get them, but they haven't heard anything from them. While everybody's initially on the fence about it, Richie's the one that convinces everybody that they should at least take a look at what's going on. While searching for them, they come across a single member of the Squirtles, asking them for their help. So, the gang follow the Squirtle to the other Squirtles that are locked up in a cage. As they try to get closer to the cage, the people who locked them up show up. It's Biff and Cassidy.
My name's not Biff, it's Butch, and you know it!
Who tells our gang to leave before they get hurt. But of course, Ash and the gang won't do that, as they feel like the squirrels are being kinda treated unfair. Biff and Cassidy send out their Aggron and Charizard, while Richie sends out Zippo. While Ash wants to be a part of this fight, Misty tells Ash to stand down, as she wants to be the one to teach these guys a lesson. While Misty wants to send out her Gyarados, the lone Squirtle wants to battle instead. So, Misty decides to use the Squirtle for the battle instead, and with teamwork from Squirtle and Zippo, they defeat Biff and Cassidy. They then make Team Rocket blast off and release the rest of the Squirtles. However, they run into kind of a problem as they don't know what to do with them, as the town wants nothing to do with them, so what do they do with them? After thinking it over a little bit, Ash has an idea of what they could do, so he heads into town to make a call. Over the next 2 days, Ash and the group sort of form a friendship between them and the Squirtles. The one that Misty used to battle sort of becomes attached to her. Anyways, 2 days later, Captain Aiden and his Wartortle arrive there. He then introduces himself as a firefighter commander stationed on Escorbia Island. It's then revealed that Ash's whole idea is that maybe Captain Aiden could take these Squirtles to become firefighters. And for the rest of the day, Captain Aiden tests out these Squirtles to see if they're worthy or not, and eventually he does deem them worthy enough to join the firefighting force. Aiden decides that he wants to take all 5 of them back with him. However, one of the Squirtles decides not to go. The Squirtle that battled with Misty seems to have gotten attached to her and wants to travel alongside her. So it joins her team and the other Squirtles are taken to the Orange Islands. It's at this point that Richie splits off from the group as he wants to go and train to face off against Tucker again by himself before facing the final Frontier Brain. Not long after, our gang arrive at Pewter City where they spend some time with Brock's family before arriving at the Battle Pyramid. The whole Ash Black thing still happens, and once Ash is normal again, Brandon tells him that he needs to get going, so they're gonna have to battle some other time. Without Team Rocket around, Ash never catches himself an Ambipom, so no Ambipom for Ash in this timeline. After this, we go into the Kanto Grand Festival, where during her battle with Soldad, May's Combusken evolves into a Blaziken. With Seviper and Blaziken weirdly working together, they defeat Solad and go on to win the Kanto Grand Festival. After helping out a girl with her Chatot, we move on to the events of the 9th movie. Once again, for the most part, the movie remains the same, nothing really changes, except at the end of the movie, the egg that Ash has been carrying around finally hatches into a Minun. Because of the fact that it's still a baby and a little shy around anyone who isn't Ash, he decides not to use it in any actual fights. It's just gonna do the Pikachu thing and hang out on his shoulder. Anyways, after this, Ash has his rematch with Brandon, and it's a pretty close fight between Ash's Charizard and Brandon's Registeel. However, thanks to a Zap Cannon that paralyzes Charizard, it gets finished off with the Hyper Beam. Thus, Ash loses, and Brandon goes to find another Pokemon. The group decide to hang around the Pokemon Center until he comes back. And coincidentally, Oak makes Ash a visit. He gives Ash a banner made by Tracy and his Pokemon, as well as food from Dahlia. Not only that, but a postcard from Gary that comes from the Sinnoh region. Eventually, Ash is told that Brandon found the Pokemon he was searching for, so now he can battle him. Ash makes a quick call to Tracy, who sends him his Ivysaur and Beedrill as requested. He then decides to go up into the mountains alone with this Pokemon to do some training. But the following day, Ash gets down and challenges Brandon to another battle. For the first round, Brandon sends in Dusclops while Ash sends in Charizard, and unlike in the original, Charizard beats Dusclops. This breaks the mean look, and when Brandon sends out Ninjask, Ash decides to switch out to his Totodile. Totodile is able to surprisingly beat Ninjask after landing a few bites and Hydro Pumps. Up next is Brandon Solrock, who takes quite a bit of damage from Totodile's Hydro Pump, but manages to defeat Totodile in a single Solar Beam. Ash's third Pokemon is his Beedrill. Beedrill is able to surprisingly take it out using Pin Missile. However, Brendan's final Pokemon, Regice, just one-shots Beedrill using Blizzard. Ash's fourth Pokemon is his Ivysaur, who manages to land a Leech Seed, but that's all he manages to land before Regice freezes the starter Pokemon solid. Ash's last hope is his Charizard, who's already tired from her first fight. Even though Charizard has a type advantage, it's still a pretty hard fought battle. It's even during this battle that Charizard finally masters Solar Beam, but it's not super useful here, so. However, Charizard ultimately takes the win when its Blaze ability activates, and she sets her Metal Claw on fire and lunges towards Regice, who begins charging up a Focus Punch. Both Pokemon clash with each other, and this sends them flying to opposite sides of the arena. And Charizard is just able to get up, while Regice remains face first, or dots first, on the floor. Thus, Ash is declared the winner and gets the Brave symbol as his reward. After Ash is put in the Hall of Fame, Scott offers Ash a position as a Battle Forntier brain. But of course, Ash declines this as he wants to keep traveling, but maybe someday in the future. After sending Ivysaur back to Professor Oak's lab, they arrive at Terracotta Town, where May, Misty, and Ash enter a contest there. For the appeals round, May enters Aron, Misty enters Chinchou, and Ash enters Totodile. Much like in the original, Ash and May are the ones that make it into the finals. And instead of it being a Blaziken vs Sceptile fight, it actually becomes a Blaziken vs Charizard fight. But even then, it still remains the same, with May and Ash deciding to split the badge between them. The group then spend one final day together as May has decided to start off on her own journey by herself. She heard from Nurse Joy in the Pokemon Center that there's some contest in Johto, so that's where she'll start. This only leaves 3 of them, Ash, Brock, and Misty. And with that, their journey pretty much comes to an end, as the 3 of them come across a road and they split off. On his way home, Ash comes across Gary and his Electivire. He of course challenges him to a battle, but Gary declines as he wants to get home first. Both of them walk home together, catching up on everything that's happened recently. After they're welcomed back by Ash's mom, Tracy, and Professor Oak, Ash and Gary have their Pokemon battle. Gary uses his Electivire to defeat Ash's Sceptile, and he tells him not to get full of himself as there's stronger Pokemon and trainers he's never met in Sinnoh. So Ash gets the idea to do some traveling in Sinnoh. Like last time, he only really plans on bringing Charizard. However, the mention of Ash leaving gets Minun to start crying. Because Minun is still a baby, he decides to bring it along too. This actually kinda angers Ash's Pichu, as not only is it not the baby of the group anymore, but Ash is taking that Minun instead of it. Ash, seeing that Pichu is mad at him, promises that on his next adventure, he'll take Pichu with him. And so, Ash, Charizard, and Minun set off to Sinnoh. And that's where we're going to be ending it off for today. I hope you guys enjoyed the end of the Hoenn and the Battle Forntier sagas, because next time we will be tackling the Sinnoh region, my favorite region. So I don't know if I'm going to start doing this yet, but I think for the Sinnoh region, I might just condense the entire region into one video, because making one region into 2 videos is just kinda dumb in hindsight. Because we're already up to part 7 and we just ended the Hoenn region. But yeah, let me know if for part 8 you guys want me to do the entire Sinnoh region or split that up between part 8 and 9. With that, I'ma end the video. I hope you guys enjoyed this. Remember to leave a like, comment, and subscribe. And I'll see you guys next time.